What happened in the past few hours wasn't just an ordinary military escalation. It was a clear declaration from Russia that the phase of strategic patience is over. So how is this night burning under the bombardment? The power station, when it goes, Ukrainian cities burn, falling one after another. But the surprise isn't here. The surprise is that America is silent. Trump is speaking positively about Russia, and Russia has also started speaking positively about Trump. So what's happening with the damage today? We will talk about this sudden Russian attack. We will talk about Trump's mysterious messages and about this hidden conflict between the deep state in America and Russia. But because honestly today we are getting closer to the date of the Great War. Stay with us. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. Welcome to our program today in this renewed meeting, God willing, from the series of episodes of Opinion Today. Dear viewers, as expected. After the cancellation of the Budapest summit, Russia began this major attack on Ukraine, with the Russians launching a wide-scale air assault that reached the capital of Ukraine. How were dozens of energy facilities, dozens of military installations, dozens of communication facilities, and so on, struck and destroyed? To the extent that there is a major power supply station in Kyiv that was completely destroyed, and all of this happened in a single night. The Russians have now launched a very large-scale offensive. They have managed to break through 11 Ukrainian regions. They have taken control of new cities. And today the Russian forces are annihilating the Ukrainians without mercy. The Russian message was very clear, and it was directed especially at the Europeans. You have obstructed the negotiation process, you disrupted the Budapest summit, and you presented a new peace plan proposal. It aims to bring Russia to its knees. It is mainly aimed at ensuring the continuation of this war. Now we will show you the other side of this war. We will show you who we are. In just one night, Ukraine suffered massive losses. The message was mainly directed, as I said, to the Europeans. Because today it became clear that despite these strong Russian attacks, there is a kind of flirtation in the statements between America and Russia. Today, for example, President Trump made a statement, He clearly stated that the Russian leadership really wants to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. They want to achieve peace. Also, Maria Zakharova, the spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry, also made statements flattering America and flattering Trump. She said that there are many political leaders in the world who harbor hatred toward Trump. She said persecution is ongoing against Trump and the Trump family for years. Zakharova said they hate Trump. Why? Because he defends traditional values, meaning he defends the family, he stands against the transgender crowd, and so on. She said that now he is paying the price for telling the truth. Also, the Russian channel Russia Today also aired a series of reports that spoke positively about Trump. Among them, for example, were statements from a former aide in the previous American administration. The Biden administration said that the deep state in America is fighting Trump and might even assassinate him at any moment, just like they did with John Kennedy in the 1960s. She said that America is living under an illusion of democracy today. She said there is no real democracy in America, only real decisions being made. These decisions are made behind the scenes by the elite who control the media, politics, and so on. That's what she said. While Russia is striking hard in Ukraine, we now see a kind of flirtation between Trump and Russia. There is also a statement from the spokesperson for President Putin, or the envoy of President Putin to America. He said that Russia really wants to end this conflict, but it can't be done without taking Russia's interests into account. He said that Russia is open to security guarantees for Ukraine, meaning it has no objection to there being security guarantees for Ukraine, but it must that these guarantees exist and that they do not go against Russian interests. At the very least, guaranteeing Ukraine's survival, because Russia still has today the same demand it had. We've discussed that this war began over 5 years ago. Russia just wants this country, Ukraine, to be neutral, to be with everyone, to have good relations with Europe, with the West and America and so on, and with Russia as well. If Ukraine had relied on this policy, it wouldn't be drowning in this war today. That's the situation. That's the case with these countries. When you give the leadership to Caracas, or when you give the leadership to a comedian who has no wisdom, who doesn't understand international politics, anything, there's something very dangerous that this talks about. The personal envoy of the Russian President Putin said that the Russian army is only targeting today Ukrainian military personnel and military installations. So why was this statement made today? Why is he saying this today? This is perhaps a signal, maybe a reminder from the Russians to Ukraine, to Europe, and to the West in general, that the Russians are still avoiding the scenario of a devastating war today. Russia's current capabilities are well known. It can destroy everything green and dry in Ukraine. If Russia wanted to burn Kiev, it would have turned it into another Gaza. If Russia wanted to destroy Kiev and everyone there today, it could have done so with conventional, not nuclear weapons. But the Russians are actually avoiding that. They're avoiding this scenario. They're not getting involved in it. Maybe they're leaving it as a last possible option. So today, this Russian envoy is currently in America today, starting there. Talks with Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and he's there now just to clarify things. It means to confirm that Russia wants to stop the war, and it has a demand that its national security is respected, but there are also those who undermine any chances of reaching a peace agreement. This Russian envoy, he also wants to convince America to stay away from today's European demands, which want America to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. And let's pay close attention. How international politics is managed, at the same time the Russian envoy is in America, we see the Kremlin spokesman, Peskov, comes out with a clear threat. He said that if Tomahawk missiles are delivered to Ukraine, it will be a justification for the Russians to cross the red line. Because basically, at that point, the war will become a full-scale war. All will be destroyed, both green and dry. On the other hand, we also find strange statements coming from Europe. For example, there is a statement from the French President Macron. It was on Sky News. He said that the sanctions recently imposed by Trump on Russia are a new turning point that will affect Russia and will impact the sources of funding for the Russians. So now, what is the so-called coalition of the willing, or what is actually called the war party? What are they waiting for, or what do they believe today? And he believes that Russia, after a short period and after these sanctions, Russia will not find any money to fund this war, and therefore it will collapse. That's what they believe. But the truth that everyone knows today is that Russia cannot collapse. It cannot be completely defeated in this war. Why do I say this? Russia now? If it finds itself defeated or on the path to defeat, it will burn everything for everyone. It could use nuclear weapons and more, and Trump knows this. And he knows that these European plans will actually lead the world to a world war. Even everyone today. Today he is actually preparing for this war, which might happen in 2030, maybe in 2028, around these years, or maybe even before that. So the peace plan in Ukraine now, honestly, every time they talk about negotiations, about results, about positive outcomes and so on, we find the opposite happening the next day. Every day that passes, this issue gets more and more complicated, which means that the big war is coming. There's no doubt, because this war will continue. There is a statement from the commander of the French forces. What did he say? He said that France will send 7,000 soldiers to Ukraine in 2026 to ensure security. The British Minister of Defense also made a statement. What did he say? He said that Britain is also ready to deploy troops to ensure security in Ukraine. And of course they're talking, after signing a ceasefire agreement, but is this agreement coming? Does this agreement mean it's still a long way off? They are the ones obstructing this peace. So why are they talking about plans to deploy these forces and setting a date for it? So everyone should pay attention here. Macron yesterday, he said that in the coming days he will send missiles and a significant number of French Mirage aircraft. These aircraft are outdated. These planes have become old and worn out. They are out of service. In almost all the armies of the world, they are out of service. So now he will send them to Ukraine, of course in exchange for money. And with this money, he will buy advanced Rafale aircraft from French factories. A high-ranking Russian official made a statement. What was said? He said it clearly. He said that Macron is mocking Ukraine, meaning with these aircraft, they are pushing Ukraine today toward destruction. They are only supplying it with old, worn-out weapons. If they really wanted to win and truly defend it, why don't they deliver better weapons? These advanced technologies, for example, the French Rafale aircraft and so on. Just a few days ago, Ukraine received the first batch of Mirage aircraft. So what happened during the first takeoff? One of them crashed due to a malfunction in its electronic systems. It is experiencing problems. And today Macron is still talking about them and will send them to Ukraine. Honestly, it's very strange how the Ukrainians are still in a deep sleep. Recently, Macron presented the latest and most advanced security system at the Louvre Museum, and the French media talked about it. It was said that it's nearly impossible to steal from this museum. With this French security system, what happened in the end? Was this museum robbed recently? So today, honestly, every expert say that Zelensky's fate will be disastrous. If he doesn't escape, his fate will be disastrous. Because it doesn't make sense that after all these years of war, with all this destruction, these losses and these deaths, with these worn out weapons, that every time he travels to America and Europe begging for these weapons, even now he clings to war and follows the war party's agenda in Europe. So in the end, he will definitely be accused of treason, maybe of collaborating with Europe, with certain countries, with a certain regime, and he will be accused of committing genocide against the people. And this is not to mention the forced conscription, sending them to perish along the front lines and so on. There are a number of accusations that threaten Zelensky today. There are a number of international reports that say the situation inside Ukraine is very tense. Everyone is angry with Zelensky, everyone is against this war, everyone wants to stop this war. But what is happening there? They can't protest, they can't go out to the streets or express themselves about their own opinions. Even today there is a big conflict involving Zelensky and the mayor of Kyiv. Recently, the Ukrainian sexual scandal was withdrawn from the mayor of Odessa. For this reason, now the mayor of Kyiv is also threatened by this. There is an Italian newspaper called L'Antidiplomatico, which said in one of its reports that Europe supports Ukraine. Only with statements and empty promises it said that Europe absolutely cannot save Ukraine. There, in Romania as well, there were protests against the Romanian president. They told him bluntly, you go and fight in Ukraine yourself. So the real situation in Europe does not bode well at all. Things are progressing gradually, meaning they're heading toward a major war scenario, because it's clear that things will remain like this until the situation explodes. Russia is victorious, it has clear objectives it wants to achieve, even by military force, and it sees this as only a matter of time. Meanwhile, the Europeans don't want to grant any victory to Russia. They believe that Russia will suddenly collapse like the Soviet Union did. That's what they think. But they don't have any clear vision of how this could happen. When could this happen? They have no vision or plan. And in the end, as I said, the Russians, if they reach the decisive point, they will definitely completely destroy Ukraine and whoever stands with it. This is a fact, so write your opinion in the comments. How do you think this war might end? And subscribe now. Click the like button. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.